A legal expert has a lot to say about this case. Alex Ferrer is a former Florida Circuit Court judge and the host of television's Judge Alex. Judge Alex, good to see you in person.
Oh, thank you. It's great to be here.
We've had a lot of conversations about this. I thought today was a fascinating day, not least because the defence kept bringing witness after witness, all saying that is George Zimmerman's voice. Now, I would have expected any friend, frankly, of George Zimmerman to say that, given that very few people apparently can recognise anybody screaming. It's a bit of a myth that they can. So it didn't surprise me they did that. What has surprised me is that you haven't seen as many people on the prosecution side saying that is definitely Trayvon. And in fact, the few that have been caught giving conflicting testimony about that.
That's true. There is the significant conflicting testimony from Tracy, Trayvon's father, who originally said no, although today he said, no, I never said that. There's not any real clear indication of why these officers, and apparently one more who hasn't testified yet, would make that fact up. If they're really trying to undermine the case, they could come up with a lot more facts to make up that didn't happen. I'm not sure how effective it is to put on witness after witness after witness like that to say it's his voice screaming, because how would they know? When have they ever heard him screaming for his life? The one that I found to be most credible was the former Vietnam War medic who said, I've heard people screaming for their life in my own platoon, and he actually got emotional on the stand talking about it, and he identified George Zimmerman.
But here's the thing that I thought was interesting. If you go back to the history of this case, even George Zimmerman himself, when he was first played the tape of him screaming, exclaimed that he didn't recognise his own voice.
That doesn't even sound like me.
No, he didn't deny it was him, and it was more an exclamation of, wow, that doesn't even sound like me. If the guy who is actually supposed to be screaming isn't sure it's him,
but that's different.
Why should we? Well, is it though?
Yes, because have you ever heard yourself on a recording? I mean, if you listen to your own voice,
many times.
And does it always sound like? Does it sound like the way you expect you sound? Because most people hear their voice in their head when they speak, and when they hear themselves recorded, it doesn't sound like that. Imagine if you hear yourself screaming for your life. It's going to certainly be different.
Right, but I'm not sure I would recognise anybody screaming in the way that we heard on that tape.
I'm with you 100%.
And that is why no voice expert has been able to definitively say.
Well, it's different, though, because people who can identify your voice are identifying it from their own personal experience and hearing it. The voice experts are using a computer program that's analyzing the voice in a different way, that's comparing it to a sample. There is no sample of George Zimmerman screaming for his life. There is no sample of Trayvon Martin screaming for his life. So, but people who know them, if they can identify it, they can identify it. I think the jury will probably doubt that either mother, either father, either friend ever heard them screaming at the top of their lungs for their life in a panic mode. So it's more of, we want it to be true than anything else.
But it is critical, isn't it? Because,
it would have been the deciding case.
Because if there was definitive proof that it was one or the other, that is the case right there.
Absolutely. If they had been able to scientifically identify the voice on that tape, the case is over. Over. Because you can't claim self-defense when the person who you're claiming self-defense from is screaming for their life for 40 seconds before you shoot them. And also, if you are claiming self-defense and it's identified that you are the one screaming for your life during that time, it makes your case. It would have been the key piece of evidence in this case, and it's not useful.
Without that, it still seems to me that a key piece of evidence in this case, and the trial we've heard so far, is the fact that George Zimmerman ignores advice, gets out of his car, starts following on whatever he says he was doing, Trayvon Martin, against the professional advice. But more than that, the description he's giving of the person he's going after, he's an a-hole, he's an effing punk, got to stop them getting away with it. To me, this seems very, very close to having some kind of malicious intent in your head about what that person is doing.
Well, that's what the prosecution's hoping for, because that's what they have.
But do you agree with it?
No, I don't. Because, well, I've tried second-degree murder cases. This is not a typical second-degree murder case. The problem the prosecution's having is they're trying to fit a square peg into a round hole, and that's why it's not fitting. The fact that he muttered those words before he got out of the car or as he's exiting the car, there's a lot that goes on between that time and the killing. And if you read the statute, what it says is it's a killing by an act imminently dangerous to another, in this case the shooting, and that act stemmed from ill will, hatred, spite, or an evil intent. So the shooting itself had to come from that evil will, hatred, which is so far removed. There's this big thing in the middle that's this fight between the two of them that we don't know how it started. So I don't believe this is a second-degree murder case. I think the prosecution is trying to make it one, but I think they're going to fail at that.
Let's take a short break. Stay with me, Judge Alex. Also, when we come back, we're going to know what George Zimmerman learned and didn't learn from his boxing trainer. I also want to bring in two more of my legal eagles for tonight's Law and Disorder.